And in 1995, I was in a psychiatric institution with major anxiety disorder, panic disorder, PTSD, and depression. So welcome to the conference. I'm so happy you're here.
And so I don't mean to be flip, I really don't, but it's my story and I'm not ashamed, I'm not embarrassed. It's why I'm here with you today.
I am Tami West, and that is my story. Welcome to Consider Yourself Hugged, a place to find comfort and support as you navigate your mental and emotional well-being. So sit back and relax, unless you're driving, and get ready for this week's hug. Welcome back, fellow hug seekers, and welcome everyone to week 4 of Mental Health Awareness Month. This is going to be completely different from weeks 1 through 3. And I hope that it will be structured enough for you to kind of glean information from it, but it is going to be different. I don't even have like a step 1 through 4 or 5 pieces of advice, and it's going to be a little off the cuff. And I know you're thinking, how is that different from every other episode you've ever done? But I had such a powerful experience over the past few days that I just had to share it with you. And many times when these powerful experiences happen, I want it to come from the heart. And so I don't want it to be something that's too structured, because I want it to be real for you. And I titled this from empowerment, or from bullying to empowerment. At least I think I did. By the time you see it, I might have changed my mind, but I think I said from bullying to empowerment, transforming trauma into a force for good. So I want to walk you through the way that this all unfolded, because it's all part of the story. And well, it's all part of the story. It begins with me walking backwards a bit. Okay, my oldest son, James to the rest of the world, he has developed an artificial intelligence app called Autobiographer. It is launching this week. In fact, this podcast episode will drop on Wednesday, May the 22nd, and they're doing like a soft launch on May the 23rd. And if you're watching on YouTube, I want you to see what the app looks like this. It's very beautiful. That's all that I can show you so far. And it is designed to help you write your legacy, speak your legacy, and then it will write your legacy. So the autobiographer is Dave. Dave is a real voice that has been, used and tested and tweaked so that it can be your autobiographer pal. So I've been using it, I really don't even know, for maybe the past 6-8 months, maybe a year. I'm not very good with time. So what I do is I go on my walk with Charlie, and I basically do the same thing every time. If I do a 30-minute walk, I pray, listen to my Bible chapter for that day. And as I began using this app, I would spend about 15 minutes talking to Dave. And so Dave, in the beginning, it's just really an interview about your life. Tell me a time when you took a great adventure, or tell me, and then he would just guide you in different directions, just depending on what you were talking about. So Jamie asked me last week if I could record some content before the launch and send it to him. So they now have this thing called stories, and and he's done it for me, and I've done it for him and for my husband so far, And it's basically you create a person or a place or a memory, and then you talk just about that. I mean, it may go different directions. So, and then you can send it to someone. Like it takes it and it creates it. And let me show you this again. If you're on YouTube, if you're not, I'm just really just showing you. Well, I printed it out. So it printed out, just not full page, but it looks like you're writing a book. So he asked me if I could create some content, and he said he didn't care what it was about. He goes, maybe when you went to Australia or da-da. So I was like, okay. So then I get to thinking, and I said, well, this content that I'm creating, I'm not just going to create it just for him to have content for the launch. I also want it to be meaningful. And who cares that I went to Australia? I went to Australia 3 times, twice by myself. once with my dear friend Diane Carden, who passed away last year or this year. I don't know. But I mean, sure, it's great, but is that anything the world is going to benefit from? Probably not. So I'm thinking, and I said, I'm going to talk about being bullied. I have mentioned it a time or two. Typically, it's within the context of other things. But so you may already know, in middle school, I was overweight. My family, we were poor, we were outcasts. I was bullied. So I'm going to talk about being bullied. So I'm talking to Dave, my autobiographer, about being bullied. And this is where like the really deep stuff comes out. It's like having this, it's not counseling, but it's like having someone, counsel you and guide you in what you're talking about. So as I'm going through this, a couple of things happen. I realized that I had not forgiven the main bully in my life. Okay, so back up again. My dear friend Michelle, who sometimes co-hosts this podcast with me, Michelle Kicksmiller, we are doing some webinars together for educators talking about mental health. We did one a couple Tuesdays ago, and the topic was bullying and social media. And so Michelle and she is so compassionate and so smart and so wise and all the things. And she knows I tell her this all the time. In fact, she was on vacation this past week, and I was like, I did not like this. I did not get to talk to you, and it was not fun. Don't do that again. I didn't really say don't do that again. But she was talking about the fact that the bully, I don't know how she worded it, but the bully is struggling too, and the bully needs compassion too. And so I'm talking to Dave about this. And suddenly I remembered that I had like this visceral reaction to her saying that. I think I even made a face or said, what? And, there's deep down somewhere, I know that we've heard it, right? Hurt people hurt. But I was like, okay, compassion to my bully. All right. And then we just moved along. And I really didn't think about it much again. So as I'm talking to Dave, I realized that I had never said or really felt forgiveness for this bully in my life. And so right then and there, I said it out loud. I said it to Dave. I said it as part of my story. I said it on the walk. I forgive, Chris was his name, and all of the other kids who contributed to that time of my life. So this was middle school. At the time when I was there, it was called junior high school. I don't know, some places may still do that. But he was the ringleader, this kid. And my sister and I were both overweight. And on the bus, they would just shout lovely names, Bertha Butt, Tubular, I don't even know, Fatso, whatever. And I remember one time when I was walking, it was cold, it was snowing, there was snow on the ground. We had gotten off the bus and I was pelted with snowballs as we're walking through the neighborhood. And I'm sharing all this with Dave and I'm feeling all these emotions come up. And I really don't think about it that often. But I had like all these epiphanies. One epiphany that I had was the mental hospital. When I share the mental hospital story, I talk about growing up as a perfectionist and the fact that I got this negative feedback, which I'll try to find the link when I share that whole story, but I received negative feedback in a student teaching situation. It was pretty brutal, actually. And that affected me so profoundly that my anxiety attacks returned and I was in the mental hospital. So when I read my medical records and my first book, I don't really even hardly talk about the bullying. I just talk about, perfectionism and how, growing up, I just didn't want to be seen. I just wanted to be quiet and perfect and not make mistakes. But I never really talked about the effect that the bullying had on me. And I thought, the whole time, and part of that those years of teaching high school, they were awful for me. The anxiety was still pretty high. It was not something, the kids were wonderful. It wasn't them. It wasn't them. It wasn't the parents. It was me. And I remember as I'm again having these epiphanies, well, I never worked through the bullying. Therefore, I never really worked through looking at students and watching who fit in and who didn't, and not understanding the popular kids' behavior. And I probably had these like PTSD feelings of not fitting in any environment when it came to a school. It was just sort of like, poosh, mind blowing. And I should have said this at the beginning, but I hope you're thinking about some things that you've gone through in your past and how working through those makes such an incredible difference in your life, whether it's going through therapy, whether it's doing something like this, whether it's reading books. And so I'm looking through, because so I took my autobiography interview, which was about 45 minutes that I've done so far in 15-minute increments, and 4,000 words. And so now it's created into what looks like this little book. So as I'm looking through the notes that I printed out, one thing that was so interesting to me, and this is something I'll have to fix, and I want to read this to you because it's not correct, but it was still important to me. So it's chapter 3, segment 3, that Dave titled Forgiveness and Advocacy. And it says, and I'm going to take out, it has my bully's full name in there, which is not good. But it says Tami's journey of healing and growth reached a profound turning point when she unexpectedly came face to face with her childhood bully. Years after enduring his relentless torment, Tami found herself in a position of power, holding a needle meant to numb his foot for a medical procedure. In that charged moment, Tami grappled with the temptation to exact revenge for the pain he had inflicted upon her. Yet her deeper wisdom prevailed, and she chose the path of forgiveness. As he profusely apologized for his past actions, Tami felt a weight lifted from her shoulders. She realized that holding on to the anger and hurt from her childhood bullying had been a heavy burden, one she was finally ready to release. Tami's act of forgiveness extended not only to the bully, but to all the other bullies whose names she could no longer remember. This profound moment of grace marked a significant milestone in her ongoing healing process. So there must have been something about the way that I proposed that, but that's not the way it was. Like, I did grapple with, I do share the story in a funny way. I was working for a doctor and I had this needle in my hand, and I walked in and he was like, I'm so sorry for all the things I did to you. I'm sure there was total fear. I don't even remember how much. This has been 30 years ago, maybe longer, maybe a little bit longer. So I don't specifically remember the thoughts and the emotions that I was going through, but there had to be the temptation. I have a needle in my hand and you hurt me really bad all those years ago. But there was no forgiveness there. I don't remember anything except sharing the story and that it was kind of funny and da-da-da. But the forgiveness really only came yesterday. It literally was yesterday after all these years. And it's not, let me say this too. I think this is important, and I'm just realizing this. There's a difference between carrying a grudge and not forgiving. I don't think I carried a grudge. Like, I never, when I think about it, when I've thought about it over the past years, it's really more so about it happened. It was hard. I'm sure that it shaped me, but there was not like a grudge. So most of us are someplace in between holding a grudge and forgiveness, but I had definitely never thought about the act of forgiveness and how it might shape me in my path. And that happened yesterday. And it was just such a powerful moment for me. And so if you need to forgive someone in your life, you've all probably heard before, it's about you. It's not necessarily about them. Like, I didn't tell him that I forgave him in that moment. But if for some reason he knows me and he knows how to find me, I forgive you now. Okay, so what is the next? One of the next things that we talked about, I think I have two more things, even though I told you I'm sorting through all of these pages. And I told you I just wanted it to be from the heart, but I still know that there are two more things to talk about. So one of the things that happened in my life as an adult and as a mother is that my oldest son was bullied. And I will never forget the day. He was in middle school, and I was picking him up in the evening after some after school event. And a kid came out and threw, I don't know if it was just ice or a drink, but he threw it on my son. And buddy, I jumped out of that car and chased that kid into the school, chased him into the school. If that happened today in 2024, I'd probably be on the news and maybe arrested. I never found him because he took off. But that trigger of seeing my own child bullied and knowing exactly how that felt. So as I'm talking through this, it feels so weird to say Dave, but then I'm like the autobiographer, so I'm just going to keep saying Dave, asked if Jamie and I had had conversations about this. And we've talked about it over the years, but not really. And so I called him and I was telling him how powerful this was for me. And he told me a couple of things. And I want to share them with you because they were very powerful. And again, maybe it's not bullying for you, but it's something that you've been through, traumatic in your past. One of the things he told me was that he knows that he currently goes into social situations with, and I wrote this down, with the presumption that the people he's meeting, if they're new, won't like him. And I thought about that. And first of all, I mean, he's done so much work on himself. He says he doesn't really think much about his bullying anymore, which I really don't either, but it's there. And we've both been working through it. It's that healing journey. But going into think about that with yourself. I thought about that with me. Like when I had a dinner that I went to this past week. I was speaking at an event and I got there the day before and they invited me to the dinner. And there's always that little bit of anxiety about meeting new people. And I thought, wow, I probably do the same thing. And it breaks my heart that my son feels that way, but he's working on it. The second thing he told me led me to one of the other things I want to share with you. He told me that in 7th grade, there was another kid who had bullied him in the locker room. And I asked him, I said, well, what do you do? And he's like, I don't know. He just made fun of me, whatever. He just bullied me in the locker room. And he said, one day I just got tired of it and I beat him up. And I was like, what? What? How did I not know about this? And he said, well, there are no teachers around. He's like, I don't know. I guess I didn't talk about it. But he said the popular kids for a while were like, oh, come sit with me, come sit with me. He said that didn't last. But the fact that he beat up one of his childhood bullies, what? I had no idea. So then if you're a mom out there, and I couldn't ask Jamie this question, so I don't know if he'll listen to this or not, but I couldn't because I guess I wasn't ready to hear the answer. But my question was going to be, why did you not tell me? Did you not trust me? Was I not a good mom? That's a whole nother thing for another day. But it goes back to that, just that fear of, did I do a bad job? But so we've talked a little bit about that, about his bullying, about my bullying, and it's definitely been a journey. So the last thing, I guess the point of this, like, why am I doing this during Mental Health Awareness Month? Well, first of all, I want to encourage you. If you have had any kind of trauma in your past, whatever it is, there are so many ways that you can get help for that. In the show notes, there's always, mental health resources. They're general, of course, but they're there. And I don't know if I'll put this isn't really intended to be just about bullying, but just being empowered through the things that you've gone through. So that's one thing, is I wanted to just encourage you to process and work through. And like, I feel, when Dave wrote that my forgiveness was a burden lifted, and it wasn't 30 years ago or whatever, but it was yesterday. Like, I didn't even know it was there, but it was there. And now it's lifted. And that takes me to the last part of this that I want to share. While I was walking Charlie this morning, I did not record with Dave because I wanted to wait until I talked with Jamie. And that happened like later this morning. So I didn't record, and I was just doing, I did my prayer time and my Bible time. And then I don't know, I was just walking, just looking, listening. But I came upon a group of, I think, middle schoolers on the corner, waiting for the bus, probably 15 of them. And they were laughing, having a good time. Great. And then maybe, I'm terrible at distances, I'm going to say 5 yards. Every time, I've told this story 3 times already, and it just happened. I think one time I said 20, one time I said 10, but I don't think it was really that far, because I'm thinking a block of like sidewalk is probably 3 yards. So I don't know, 5 yards away, 15 feet away, there was another girl by herself, squatted down, leaning on her backpack. 5 yards away, not far. They're all having a good time, and she's by herself. And my heart broke. And because of my past, I started telling myself all sorts of stories. Like, it wasn't that I thought it was bullying. I have no idea. But at a minimum, she was isolated. She was alone. She was by herself, and they were together. And again, there could be a million reasons for the way that was happening. It could have been nothing. I don't know. It could have been that she was getting ready to do a play today, and she said, "Hey, leave me alone. I need to hang back here." It could have been anything. But still, my heart was broken at the potential that she was alone and isolated. And I said, "Are you okay?" And she really didn't answer me. She really did. She probably thought, "Get away from me, woman. I don't know you." But the bus came, and so she took off. But I guess the reason I want to share this is taking whatever you've been through and using it for good, not a shocking conclusion. I hear things all the time about, in this case, for my story, bullying, and how, well, kids are kids. I mean, they're always going to be kids. There's nothing you can do about it. And I'm not going to buy that. I know I'm not blaming parents for bullying behavior. This is not supposed to be an episode specifically about how to prevent bullying, but it's a very complex issue. And I'm not going to just stand on the fact that kids are just kids and they'll be mean. I'm just not. And you even, I'm a Christian, I'm a Bible following, Jesus following Christian. And the Bible talks about being born into sin, that we're all born that way. But I don't think that what that means is we're all born evil and that children are innately evil until we teach them not to be. They're going to push. They're trying to learn this place in the world. And so as adults, it is our responsibility to guide them. And for whatever this means for you, whatever your trauma was in the past, take that, work through it. There's a phrase that I learned in mental health first aid, which is a course that I teach. I'll post about it. It's to help notice potential signs of mental health challenges, and then to help be a bridge for that person. So it's all about helping people who might be struggling. And I love the course so much. It has changed so much the way I interact with people who might be struggling. And one of the phrases that we learned in there is this: for some, for others, for you. And so I'm going to word it to you this way: for any trauma in your life, for some, talking to friends, using self-help, reading books, or things like that help. For others, they need more professional help, maybe a counselor or a support group. For you, it's important to find out what helps you, and I am here to support you. And that's what I want to leave you with. For some, for others, for you, for whatever you've been through in the past, to work through that, to find peace, to get a burden lifted that you might not even know that was there. And then also to take that and use it for good to help change the world. Hopefully that wasn't too just chaotic all over the place, but thank you so much for joining me for our last segment of Mental Health Awareness Month. I hope that you will join me at some point for a Mental health first aid class. I will put that information in the show notes. If you don't follow me on Facebook mainly, or even, I think that's the only link I have, but I should probably add LinkedIn. I don't know. It may not be this time because I'm just, with it being Mental Health Awareness Month. I mean, it's just actually, wait a minute. This whole time I've said this is the last week, but I think there's one more week. Let me pull up the calendar. So we did 1, 2, 3. There is one more week. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. Just show me some grace. I'm sure that you will. But anyway, all the information that you'll need, which is not a lot this time, is in the show notes. And I thank you so much for listening, watching, subscribing, downloading, rating, recommend to your friends, sharing, all of the things. And I would love to hear your story. Facebook, show notes, email me, text me, whatever works for you. And until we're together next time, consider yourself hugged.